Welcome back to the Adventures of a Disney Dad podcast. My name is Matt Brandenburg, a dad of three and the founder of adventuresofaDisneyDad.com, a travel agent with the magic for less travel, and your host. I'm joined by my co host, Chip Robinson. As always, well, not always, but soon to be a dad of five. We're almost at the end. Chip, how's everything going?
By the time this comes out, we're within about 21 days. I'm gonna say so. We're close.
There you go. Let's keep that
It's going
baby in there a
well.
little bit longer. This week, we are joined by a special guest. I'm really excited for this episode. Matt Richardson. Matt is a Disney content creator on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. He can be found at Matt Richardson. He also does really cool travel content outside of Disney parks. He's one of my favorite follows on social media. So I'm really happy we're able to have him here this week. We're also going to do a main segment of the episode. It's going to be focused on sort of a beginner's guide to Epcot. We'll talk about food, rides, some of our favorites. Most importantly, we're going to talk about a lot of Matt's favorites, and he's got a lot of experience at Epcot, so we'll talk about that. We'll have a ton of listener questions towards the end. We have a few games. We hope you enjoy the episode. But before we get into all that, Matt, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got started creating content. And
All right.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, so I went to Disney as a kid a few times, but not a lot. It wasn't a huge thing in my family. And about 10 years ago, my partner, now husband, we both went to Disney just on a whim. We were in Florida. We're like, let's check this out. And from there, I really got hooked on it. And I kept going back, going to Disney World, Disneyland. We were living in San Francisco at the time. So I was going to Disneyland a lot. And then I was interested in visiting the international parks. And I just got really into it. And I also was working previously worked in television. I was a film student. And so eventually I started to blend those interests together, the Disney, the travel, and the filmmaking and video making, and just started posting it's about like maybe a year and a half ago, I really started posting content in earnest. Although I was dabbling a lot up until that point with all kinds of media, just posting my experiences in Disney parks and travel. And then I just got serious about it about a year and a half ago. And then few videos that really went viral kind of launched me and got me noticed, and it's been a lot of fun. And now I'm really enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun lately.
I really enjoy your content. I think you were one of the first follows that I had on TikTok. And one of the first videos, I vividly remember this because I just remember thinking, like, man, I would love to do that for a week. And it was one of your videos about working at Walt Disney World. And as a lawyer who works from home and who also dabbles in Disney stuff on the side, I was sitting there thinking I could pull that off. And I think it's part of it is your storytelling and your editing and the way you handle your videos. And so kudos to you on all those fronts.
Thank you.
But I guess, was that really part of the start of your journey, being able to work at Disney parks and spend some time there in the evenings?
Yeah, that helped a lot. I'm very lucky. I have a remote job and I travel a lot for work anyway. So I also get miles and hotel points and so on. And so I was sort of optimizing my life so that I could spend more time there. And yeah, that's what I was doing. I was working during the day. I also work for a company that's based in the UK. So I was starting my day a lot earlier, and then I was having the afternoon and evening in order to go to the parks. So it gave me a lot of time in the parks. I started to learn the ins and outs of it a lot. I was consuming a lot of content too and seeing kind of the content I like. But yeah, just being able to work during the day and then head into the parks at night was a great way for me to sort of start off as a content creator. And then that video that you're talking about, the work from Disney video, yeah, that was the first one that really went crazy viral. And that was just me talking about here's how I made it work for me. And I don't know, there was something compelling about that.
Even as a travel agent, I think you talked a little bit about the owner's locker in a video,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that
that was the
helped a
first time
lot.
I'd even heard of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was really interesting because I assumed that owner's locker has been around for a long time,
it
and
has, yeah.
I had assumed that it was something everybody knew about, and that was something a lot of people picked up on. It's basically a storage solution. You get a big bin, and they pick it up and drop it off for you at Disney resorts, and they are great. They work really well. It's actually pretty affordable, with unlimited pickups and drop offs. You pay for a year in advance, and that really made it easier for me. It was a little, I could leave stuff behind, some clothes, toiletries, spare. I had this like portable spare monitor, keyboard, mouse, and just kind of jam it all in there and just leave it in Florida. And then next time I came back, I would get delivered to the resort again and set myself up again to work. It was a key to success for work from Disney. I loved the owner's locker.
Your
And
videos are awesome. I love like watching
Thank
all
you.
the. I'm a big fan of like the travel hacking. So like I've been watching your videos on just like all the clubs and all of that, like the sky lounges. Like I'm always jealous. I'm like, oh man, he's at the one that I just heard about in this other podcast. So like it's pretty cool. I enjoy all of your content.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the more you travel, the easier it is to do all that stuff. There's very little that, I'm paying for out of pocket. It's just if you get a lot of miles, you can get into those clubs, and I spend the
Yeah.
miles on the membership and everything. So it just makes travel a lot easier. So yeah, it's fun, and that's the thing. And my whole thing is just sharing my experience. And if I have access to something that's interesting or neat, I can find some interesting things in really mundane spaces, I think sometimes. And so airport might be a mundane space, but there's always something interesting to find there. So I like sharing that.
it is so funny you mentioned that. There was one day I watched your video and it was the chocolate ice cream in a lounge. And it
Oh,
was you were
Solana.
showing how it was
Yeah.
made. And I'm telling you, by the end of it, I was sitting there thinking, this guy made ice cream in an airport lounge interesting to me.
You know the
And
Reddit. Have you seen the Reddit mildly interesting? I
yes,
I love that kind of stuff. It's just like here's something that people may just kind of look at and walk by, but then there's a subset of people who will be like, wait a second, that's kind of cool. I've never seen anything like that before. And I'm always just on the lookout for stuff like that. And that weird ice cream machine is an example of okay, that's kind of mildly interesting. That's not something you see every day.
I'll say I'll
it
say
really
the
is.
greenhouses as well. The greenhouses over in Canada as you're flying back. I'm like, I heard Cleveland, and I'm like, wait, is this up like on the lake? Like we looking in Menor? Like where's this? Then you said Ontario, and I'm like, well, that's weird.
Yeah, that was even eerie. I was flying in a plane, looking out a window, and just seeing what looked like LEDs all over this
Yeah.
huge, like acres of LEDs or something. And it was a bit of a mystery, but that was a fun one to solve. And so it ends up being you can see some greenhouses when you're flying north of Lake Erie. It's really weird looking from the plane.
And I forgot to mention at the beginning, congratulations on your recent marriage.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
For anybody following along, definitely don't want to miss out on the congratulations there. You've kind of come full circle. You've gone from working from Disney to now you have a spot in Disney. You guys recently bought a spot in Celebration. What does your life look like now in terms of your Disney vacations? I mean, do you go solo? Do you go with your partner, with family? Like, is it a mix of both? Tell us a little bit about how you like the vacation.
It's a little bit of everything. I've gone a lot solo on my own. My partner also travels for work a lot. And so sometimes if he's traveling for work, I don't really want to sit at home by myself. So I want to go somewhere and work somewhere interesting. So I'll do that. I've really enjoyed solo trips for many years, even going down to Disneyland from San Francisco when I lived there. I love that. I am now at the age where a lot of my friends are having kids that are Disney age and I'm going a lot with them. I'm kind of in my community of I'm their pro. In fact, just before this, I had a 2-hour call with a dear friend of mine who's never been to Disney World with his family, and I was
Oh,
running
wonderful.
down all the things he needs to consider and everything about how to make the trip a success. And so I have a standing offer with all my close friends and family that I'll kind of, if they'll allow me to join their vacation, go along and help to make it a fun one. And we have a lot of fun. So going with friends and family, I have 10 nieces and nephews. They all have standing offer from Uncle Matt for them to take them around Disney World. And yeah, and then I also do the races as well, the Run Disney races. I've been a runner for a long time, and that kind of keeps me going down there as well. So definitely a mix. It's a mix of different times, different kinds of ways that I'm there under different contexts, whether that's meeting up with friends and family, going for a race, or just being there on my own for a little while and getting content.
And I think that one of the questions I get a lot is about solo travel because people see that I go to Disney. They also sometimes don't see that there are other people with me too, and it may look like I'm by myself, but I'm not necessarily. I'm just not filming them or whatever, sharing them in my content. But I definitely want to touch base a little bit on the solo travel because there's a lot of people that want to do it. And what would your tips be for someone that's never traveled by themselves before, but they really want to and they want to take that leap? What advice would you give to that person?
It's tough because, like, to me, it's totally normal. I travel a lot for work on my own, so I'm traveling solo. I'm totally acclimated to it. I think that there's a lot of people who are just not acclimated to traveling on their own, and so to them, and I get these comments a lot on my videos where people are asking me about me being by myself, or if I mention I'm on a solo trip, people are just, they can't even fathom it.
Mhm.
And for me, it's very natural. And I think I'm just acclimated to it. And so my advice is usually along the lines of, you just got to do it. You just got to try it. You're sort of, I think a lot of people overthink it too much, and they get into their head about how's it going to be, and honestly, it's going to be great. You're going to have a good time because you make the choices, you do what you want to do. And I think a lot of the issues people talk about when they think about solo travel, they're just getting worked up about demons that aren't there or issues that aren't there. And I think I'm just lucky because I'm very much acclimated to solo travel. And so I have a great time in the parks. I do whatever I want whenever I want. I call it quits when I want. I eat whatever I want. It's great. I love it. I love it. Everyone should try it at least once if they can.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, I was the same way. I got more acclimated, traveling for work. And I kind of started to tell myself, if I can go to Vegas by myself for work, I can go to Walt Disney World by myself. And now I kind of make it about work too. And for me, there's a little bit of I do miss my kids when I'm there, but it can be a really, really great time. And definitely take Matt's advice and jump on it. And in terms of Run Disney races, have you done the marathon, or which weekends have you done?
So I've done wine and dine weekend, princess weekend, and marathon weekend, but not the marathon, the half marathon during that weekend.
Okay.
So yeah.
Any plans to try the full
So I
or the
am
dopey?
but I
Okay.
am registered for the full in January. I'm not exactly trained up for it, so I'm gonna decide. I'm at the go no go moment now where I need to decide whether I really should be trying for it or not. I mean, I just did the wine and dine half marathon, and I ran the full half marathon. It felt great at the end, and then I walked another 13 miles in the parks. So if I run a half and walk a half, it might be what I do. But knowing me, I can't do that, and I'll try to run the full. And it may not be the best thing for me if I don't have the right training behind me. So I'm kind of deciding what I'm going to do now.
Disney and being undertrained for a marathon are dangerous combinations. I
Yeah.
I ran Chicago undertrained, and I would do it again. So I would encourage you to do it, just because, I mean, from doing Disney races, the Disney marathon is a different deal, and it's special. So definitely I would encourage you to do it. Just give it a shot. If you got to walk, you got to walk, and there'll be plenty of other people that are going to be walking out there with you. So that definitely give that a shot. I'll be down there that weekend too, so maybe we'll say hi.
Yeah. Great.
So
You gonna try to get the Disneyland, go coast to coast?
Yeah, I would love to do that. I'm registered for the Disneyland half, but it turns out I'm not able to make it. Some plans came up. So that's the thing. These registrations are 11 months in advance, and I don't plan my life 11 months in advance. So yeah, there's another registration fee down the toilet.
Yeah, it can be that way. Along the same lines of solo travel, people that want to put themselves out there and create content, whether it be travel, Disney, or other content, I think you can give great advice across the board. What advice would you have for people that are really wanting to get started, and also really sticking with it once you do get started and staying consistent? What advice would you have for those folks?
I think my number one piece of advice would be to just get it out there. Don't, whatever it takes to get a video out fast or get some piece of content out fast, you'll improve over time. I look back at my videos from a year ago and I cringe at the choices I made. And but it took all that video making and looking at the responses to the videos and seeing how they do and looking at them retrospectively to really improve as a creator. You never know what's going to get traction. You never know what's going to be compelling to people. I've been surprised by things I've done that are interesting to people. The greenhouse thing is an example of those weird, mildly interesting things. Some just like really take off. So I really do encourage people to, if they're interested in that, think about it as, what is it that you're seeing through your eyes? What are you experiencing? And how can you share that in a way that's interesting and compelling? And that's kind of the harder part, is how do you make it interesting and compelling? And that takes a little bit of thought, I think. I think, there's a lot of content I see where people are kind of just throwing stuff out there, and I call it like first thought or first idea, and I think if you give things a little bit of time and you ruminate on things a little bit, you might come up with a better way of sort of a compelling hook to something, giving it a spin or a way of editing it that makes it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more enticing for people to watch. And in fact, sometimes that happens to me after I've uploaded the video. I upload the video and I said, oh, you know what? I missed a trick there. I missed a way for me to make that a little bit more compelling. And then I say, oh, well, I learned my lesson for next time. But that's the whole thing. It's volume, it's numbers,
Yeah.
it's getting content out there as much as you can. And more than anything, have a good time, enjoy it. I see it as a new perspective to see the parks and to enjoy the parks by getting content. And I love that. That's really how it started, really, for me. It was like, they just put out the statues for the 50th anniversary of Disney World, and my husband and I were like, well, let's go see all of them in a day if we can. Let's figure out if we can do that. And I decided to record it, and I
I
said,
saw that video.
yeah, that's a fun new, it was like a new dimension for me. It was like, okay, the first new dimension was trying to do this challenge, but then why not capture it too? And then that became a new dimension on how to experience the parks, is how to share that experience.
Do you plan your content out in advance usually? Or do you, because a lot of times I think you film your content and then you do voiceovers after. Sometimes you show yourself in between for those that have seen Matt's content. But do you plan that out, or do you more so film the content of your day vlog style and then come back with your hook and the way you want to tell a compelling story afterwards? How does that
I
work for you?
There's not a single way. There's not a single way I do it. There's a lot of different ways that I do it. Generally, the most common way I'll do it is I just capture the experience as it's happening. And then if in the experience I know what my hook is, I might record that to camera after the fact. I might stand outside the restaurant and record the hook based on kind of like, what my experience was. Sometimes I need to kind of think about what the script and the hook is. And so I let it go, and I might take some notes in Google Docs or something, and just, I have kind of a rough outline of a script. And then when I get home, I'll sort of flesh out that script, record a full voiceover, and then lay that down and put the video track on top of that. But then sometimes, though, I have a very clear idea of what the compelling aspect is. If like I'm going to do the behind the scenes tour at Epcot, I kind of know how I want to introduce that and what I want to say. So I'll think about what that opener is. I'll record that before doing it, and then go and do the experience. So it all depends. It all depends. Sometimes it's just I'm in the park, I notice something interesting and record it, and then figure out how to kind of work it into a concept or work it into a vlog style for the day.
Is there a favorite video or a video that sticks out to you that you are the most proud of?
So I was thinking about this recently, and I was thinking about a moment I had making a video where I was in the parks and was just sort of doing vlog style and a video for the day. And I got an Instagram message from a cast member that said, "Matt, come to Sunshine Seasons. We've got a new milkshake, an Oreo milkshake." And so we were we were walking off of Ratatouille when that happened, and I was like, "Well, let's go." And so we went right at that moment to go film a video about a brand new milkshake. Now, I don't think of myself as someone who covers like breaking news at Disney World. I just share my experience. But this was really fun because it made me feel like I was like I felt like I was covering a hot story. I got a hot tip, and let's get it out there. And so it was just like a fun moment. Not only that someone knew me well enough to know that I would absolutely love an Oreo milkshake, that they got in touch with me to let me know when they were starting to serve it as like a test at Sunshine Seasons, and I got to be one of the first to try it, and I was able to document that and share that. And for me, that was like I felt like a true creator in that moment, and so that one's a special one for me. Although it's not like it wasn't like a high performing video or anything, but I really enjoyed that moment of feeling like that was like a moment I felt like a true creator.
And it can kind of give you an eye into how some of these
Yeah.
bigger sites get their information. You always wonder, like, how do they always know when there's a brand new pair of ears at a random shop at Hollywood Studios? There's a little bit of how the sausage is made for some of that stuff, and that's really cool. And your content isn't only Disney, and I think that's one of the things that I appreciate too. I wouldn't call you necessarily, from my perspective, I wouldn't label you as a variety content creator. I still would. I think you're based in travel and Disney. But what's your favorite kind of content to make? Is it Disney, or is it something? Is there something else that you enjoy doing more?
The way I see it is I'm sharing my experiences, and I like interesting experiences. Disney is great at providing interesting experiences. And so I do prefer the Disney stuff. There's also just a massive audience for it. But I think there's interesting experiences all over the world. And it's not just Disney doing interesting stuff. You've got like Team Lab in Tokyo or Meow Wolf, which I haven't done Meow Wolf yet, but I've done the Team Lab experiences. And I love stuff like that. I want to be doing more stuff like that. And so my whole thing here is where are those interesting things happening? The thing about Disney is that they're so prolific with providing new and interesting experiences. They're putting a new spin on a food item or a restaurant experience or an attraction. They're opening new attractions or putting new skins on attractions. And so I really love how they're keeping that fresh. And there's just such a huge volume of stuff to talk about and think about and experience and share. So Disney's just a natural spot for me. So I really do like that a lot.
Awesome. You're also on every platform, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Is there a platform that you prefer to be on more than others?
There's something, so I've been kind of vacillating on this a little bit. I was having my first big hits on TikTok, and the thing I liked about TikTok was that I felt like every video had a shot at success on TikTok. You didn't have to have a huge audience. And, I had very few followers with my first big hit, which was a video about the 50th anniversary tour that takes you to Cinderella Castle. And I had not a lot of followers, but that video did really well, got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. And so I like TikTok because it gives everyone a chance for success. If you've got compelling content, it has a shot in the Thunderdome. I think in platforms like YouTube and Instagram, it's a little bit more about audience building, brand building. It's a little bit about how you fit into this picture and a bigger picture rather than just a piece of content. And so that's taken a little bit more time. It's a little bit more slow, but it's come a long way. And the Instagram audience has developed over time, which is really nice. But TikTok, there's something about TikTok that I really enjoy how everyone has a shot at success. You see, it's incredible. You see some amazing stuff come bubble up on TikTok. I like that stuff.
The TikTok seems to have less pressure
Yeah.
in my opinion. There's also can be a little bit more toxicity.
Yeah.
It seems. I haven't personally experienced that, but just what you view in the Disney parks world, there can be a little bit more people that are behind their keyboards a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's so the another big difference is that like TikTok encourages discourse and using the platform for discourse, whereas Instagram is a little bit more like this is me and what I present to you as my life, and that's it.
Mhm.
Maybe people make comments, but there's not that sort of like reaction video culture that you see on Instagram. That on TikTok you see stitches and duets, which like people really use for all kinds of discourse, whether good and bad.
Yeah.
And I personally just try to focus on making content. I actually try to stay out of the discourse other than engaging with people who are making productive comments on my videos and encouraging that. I try just to sort of steer clear of drama as much as as much as I can.
That's the way to go. One last question before we start jumping into really some of the Disney nitty gritty. What are your goals as a content creator, if you have any, for the next 1 to 5 years? Do you have like, I mean, is working with Disney a goal, or do you have any kind of goals for your content creation, or is it purely let's just make memories, let's have fun, let's show how I'm living my life, which that seems to be my impression of how you view things. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that.
This is a hobby for me. I'm enjoying it. I'm living in the moment with it. I don't have any goals for it. I'm just seeing where it goes. And I think I want to continue to just find interesting experiences to share and see where it goes. But it's just a fun little hobby. I'm not trying. I think I feel like once I try to make it something that it's not, I feel like I'm gonna start to fail at it. So I really just want to live in the moment and let the organic thing do its thing. And that way I'm not disappointed. I think that's the thing is like you might hope for something more than what you have. And then when you don't get it right away, you get really discouraged and you stop it. And that's what I don't want to do is I want to keep this up. I want to enjoy what I'm doing in the moment and not think too much about what the future holds. And I know there's going to be some natural development over time. I'm going to perfect my craft. I'm going to find more interesting things to talk about, and more people are going to get in touch with me and give me interesting tips. And so that's, I want to see, just let that unfold naturally as it will.
That's
In
I
other
see that
words, if
from your videos too. Yeah, like I see that you're very like, this is what I would do. Like, like you do whatever you want. But this is what I like. These are what my things are. And it's more like helpful advice is what. And you said earlier, you're your friends, your family's guru. It's the same way with us. That's who I got a text from a college roommate saying, "Hey, should I go to Magic Kingdom for one day in February?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here's what you got to do." And like
Right.
that's what your platform is, and it's awesome. I always love watching those videos.
Yeah, it's everyone has an interesting story to tell. Everyone has interesting experiences, and I think it's just like how you get them out there, how you tell that story makes the biggest difference.
Yeah.
and if you're a cast member, keep sliding into Matt's
Yes,
DMs.
please, I would appreciate
There,
that.
there you go. And then Matt can slide them to me,
Right.
and I'll share them too. But let's dive into one of the coolest things that a lot of other people may not get the chance to experience, and you get the travel from work and things like that is the international parks. So give us. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I know you've done Tokyo Disney, Shanghai Disney, Disneyland Paris. I know I've seen those on your content. What are your thoughts on those parks in general? Which ones are your favorites? And how important do you think it is for kind of a Disney person to put it on their bucket list? And I know that's a loaded couple of questions.
So yeah, the international parks, if you're lucky enough to be able to go to them, are an incredible experience. I travel a lot for work. I travel internationally for work. So sometimes my work travel has brought me near a park and been able to visit. Sometimes it's about getting the miles to make my own trip to visit. They are all incredibly unique. They all have their own character, and hats off to Disney and Imagineering for making each park unique, not making carbon copies, and really being authentic to the locale that they're in. I if I had to pick a park that I would say that you've got to see it, or a resort you have to see, I would say the Tokyo Disney Resort is the one. This is, you know, this Tokyo Disney Sea in particular, the non-Disneyland park that's there, or there's the Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea. Tokyo Disney Sea is unlike any park that Disney has anywhere. It's about, ports, different seaports, and different themed lands based around seaports. And it's got this very maritime theme to it throughout, but it's really gorgeous and detailed and beautiful. And it's got some of the things you expect, like it's got a Tower of Terror there, it's got a version of Soarin' there, but it's got a lot of other interesting things like Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is like a really fun and interesting ride and beautiful queue. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, these are beautiful parks. There's definitely a difference in the experience, a difference in the merchandise and the food, and the layout is just sort of like, if you're at Tokyo Disneyland, it's oddly familiar, but it's also very different. And so, yeah, I do love the parks, in particular like Tokyo Disney Sea, but also like had an incredible experience at Shanghai, Disneyland Shanghai, and I do like Disneyland Paris. It's a lot of fun there. There's some good stuff there, but I think Tokyo Disney Resort is probably my favorite. I haven't been to Hong Kong yet, and in fact, I just a couple weeks ago I was like a boat ride away and I wasn't able to go. I was in Hong Kong for work. I was in Shenzhen for work in Hong Kong, and I was so close, but it was a couple weeks before Frozen, the new Frozen land had opened. So I was like, hey, maybe what I'll do is, wait until Frozen opens and then make a trip to Hong Kong so I can get all parks checked off my list.
Listen, I'm going to go with him and say that Tokyo Disney, or it's the C one,
Disney
Tokyo
Sea.
Sea, Disney Sea on Google Maps is by far the most beautiful. Like I'm a nerd, like with that, like I'm a teacher, so the kids always ask me why. Well, show me, and I literally pull up Disney World once a week and show my kids, oh, this is where I'm looking to stay. And so the one day I looked at them all and I'm like, oh man, this one I got to go to. This one just looks like, is there a volcano in the middle or something
Yep.
in the middle?
Yep. And in the volcano, there's Journey to the Center of the Earth, and there's
Yeah,
other
that's
things.
right.
It is gorgeous. I mean, the detail. So we're very lucky with the parks that we have in the United States. There's a lot of detail. It's very vivid. They do a great job with the theming. There's something about the Tokyo parks where the details dialed up, I think, just even a little bit more, and it's a little bit more enveloping. It,
Mm.
brings you in a little bit more. You really do feel like you're in another world there. There's just something about it where they just dialed it up a little bit, and there's nothing else quite like it. It's a great place.
That's where the Toy Story Resort is too, right?
Yeah, I haven't been there yet. Last time we were there, I'm lucky enough to have gone to Tokyo. And also, if you, to anyone out there who's thinking about doing this, making sure just to make sure you also see Tokyo proper, because Tokyo is a beautiful city. There's a ton of amazing things to do. I love the city of Tokyo, and then also other places in Japan. We just did a trip where we did Kyoto, Tokyo, and then Tokyo Disneyland as a just for fun. And Hotel Miracosta is right there, basically in Tokyo Disney Sea. Amazing, amazing. If you're lucky enough to get a room which has a view of the park, it's beautiful. It's a really really cool experience.
Very cool. Very cool. And before we jump into our main segment about Epcot, I want to ask generally because I don't know if would you call yourself a foodie, Matt?
No, I don't. I used to work for a TV chef, and I there were proper culinary people on that show, and I know how serious the culinary world is. I am so far away from that. I like eating food. I like talking about what I think about the food, but I am a little reluctant to call myself a foodie.
All right. Well, I won't call you a foodie, but
Okay.
you do great food content. And so part of what I wanted to ask generally, just to have an opportunity to chat about it, what are some of your favorite places to eat and snack at Walt Disney World, whether it's a specific park or a specific resort or specific restaurant? What are some of your favorite spots?
So you can't beat Epcot during a festival. There's just so many options there. In particular, food and wine. Obviously, I was just at Food and Wine with two nieces of mine and some other family members, and we had a great time. Everyone got to try little. We just did the whole loop, and everyone got to try the thing that they were interested in. There's just variety. Variety is just makes a big difference here, where people can try that little thing and little dishes. It gives you a chance to try lots of stuff. And hey, if you didn't like it, it was $8. It was small. It was not that big of a deal, but like, you can try a lot of things, and that variety that they have when you're at a festival at Epcot, I think can't be beat. And I think if you like food and wine, or any of the other festivals too, because there's plenty of other food at the other festivals at Epcot too. So that would be like my pick for food at Disney World is go to Epcot during one of the festivals.
And little preview, we are going to make everybody rank their festivals at
Okay.
the end of this episode. So, little preview for later. I like you the segue a little bit there. So let's jump into it. Obviously, Epcot, Matt just hit the nail on the head. Festivals are huge. There seems to be one going on year round. So if you're not familiar, there's Festival of the Arts, Food and Wine, Flower and Garden, and now Festival of the Holidays over Christmas. And there's very rarely, gosh, and in fact, like I think it's a very, very, very small number of days where there's not a festival going on at Epcot.
Right.
And I think that's what makes Epcot unique and beautiful and all the things. And so we'll talk about the festivals and how we would rank them a little bit later. But when we talk about attractions, I had a call from a guest this morning, and she is going back to Disney with her family for the first time since 2013. And the first thing that she said was, "I don't know that we need to take our kids to Epcot." And I said to her, and this is what find myself telling guests a lot of the time, it's not the Epcot that the three of us here grew up with, and it is completely different. In fact, like for kids, it's arguably, I think, the one of the best parks, if not the best park, because it's the character meets are special. You can meet almost all the princesses. So if you've got a daughter or a niece, it's a great opportunity for you to be able to meet a lot of characters. And they've really changed the game there with rides. Now, the construction has been a mess recently, and they're hopefully bringing a lot of those walls down. I think there was recently an announcement about the statue and some of the walls coming down. So I think we're all looking forward to that. But let's talk first, really quickly, about attractions. Matt and Chip, I want to ask you your thoughts on this too. But Matt, what are your favorite attractions at Epcot that really stick out to you?
So Epcot has the best attraction Disney World of any Disney park has right now, which
Hot take.
yeah, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is the best attraction that Disney World or Disney Parks has done. and it's at Epcot. So I always tell people, do not sleep on Epcot. Go over there. I recommend people going, and if they can, try doing Cosmic Rewind early on in their trip, because they may want to change their plan so that they can ride it every other day of the trip if they can. So I think that Cosmic Rewind is brilliant. I think brilliant attraction in so many ways. We could do a whole show about why it's amazing, but it's up there.
I could not agree more. Chip, what do you think in terms of attractions? Do you agree with Matt there on the Guardians of the Galaxy?
I'm with you. I'm a big Tron guy, just because I don't know, it moved a little funky for me. I still loved it. I would go do it again. I'm gonna do it again, but I think one of the biggest sleepers is the Seas Pavilion, especially. I mean, at one point it was the largest saltwater tank in the United States. I think now Atlanta's aquarium's bigger, but I could spend 4 hours in there, and we've spent like 2.5. And I know
I didn't know you can scuba dive there. Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that
Whoa,
until
whoa,
I
whoa.
was looking at Enchanting
You
Extras.
watched Full House.
I didn't watch Full House, man. I was not a Full House guy. I assume that happens on an episode of Full House?
Yes.
All right. Matt, have you seen that episode, or is it just me?
I did watch Full House. I don't remember that episode, but I'll have to go look that up.
All right. So I'm with you on I have to say Guardians it's the best Disney ride to me, and Tron would be a close second. The only problem I have with Tron is that Tron is just a little short, and Tron can also be uncomfortable for some people, which is understandable. But Guardians is it takes what you think about on a theme park attraction to a different level, and it really kind of shows you what the future can be for a lot of these attractions, which is another thing that I love. And it really compares to some of the stuff you started to see at Universal when they first had the Hogwarts ride when it first opened at Universal Studios, where you're kind of in a ride vehicle that goes all different directions. And I think that that was the first one at Disney that really did that in a strong way. And like Matt said, we could talk about that all day, but the Frozen Ever After is underrated. I think also it's a really important one for kids. I wish that the animatronics were a little bit better, but especially in comparison to some of the international parks that Matt has talked about. But I have to agree. Guardians is the, what do they call it? The creme de la creme, the best of the best at Epcot, and definitely check it out. But overall, with Ratatouille, Frozen Ever After, Guardians, Test Track, Soarin'. There's a good number of attractions there that, again, it's not the Epcot that we grew up with. And I think that's important. Yeah. Oh, shows. Yeah. So let's talk about shows real quick. What are your favorite shows at Epcot? Chip, let's hear yours first.
We like the Beauty and the Beast sing along, and I know this is one of those. It's a hot take, but my daughter loves that. I don't know why. She loves singing. So that's her favorite. I love the Canada video, and I have no idea why. It used to be Martin Short, now it's Eugene Levy and the mom from Home Alone, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that movie. I have no idea why. There's no real reason. I'm not Canadian. I have no ties to Canada, but I just enjoy that video.
Matt, what about you? Do you have any favorite shows at Epcot, or are you not a shows guy?
At Epcot, there's not a show at Epcot that really pulls me in. I do like the fireworks show. We could talk more about that, but I like the way that they do fireworks at Epcot. I really appreciate. There's plenty of room for everybody. There's not a bad seat in the house for the most part. It doesn't feel like you know what it's like doing a Magic Kingdom fireworks show where it's like you're jammed in there. There's a lot more room. So I do appreciate whatever the fireworks show is at the moment. At the time when you're at Epcot, I know it's now just about to change again, but I like that aspect of it. But there's not in particular in shows. I'm not totally into anything at Epcot.
My wife and I were just talking about that feeling at Magic Kingdom, because we usually try and get one night of the dessert party at Magic Kingdom when we go as a family, because then you don't have to do that. And that's a tip I always give guests, is like, it's expensive. It's, it can be, I think, anywhere from 80 to 130. I don't remember offhand. But you can do the pre or post fireworks dessert party at Magic Kingdom, and then you get a spot on the hub where you don't have to fight with everybody or stand for an hour to hold your spot. So definitely think about that if you're considering those things. But to Matt's point, like you don't get that at Epcot. And now Epcot's changing the fireworks show again. Symphony of Us is starting in a couple weeks. How would you, Matt, in terms of the theme parks, you've got Happily Ever After, Fantasmic, changing shows at Epcot. If you have one night on a trip, which one would you rather see?
Fantasmic. I think Fantasmic's an amazing show. It's got a little bit of everything. In particular, what I like about Fantasmic, live performers. I mean,
Mm,
there are live
yes.
performers in other shows, but there are a lot of live performers in Fantasmic. And then it also adds the pyro, the music, the lights, the water effects. There's some really cool theatrical effects that are happening in Fantasmic. And there's a bit of a story there. A little bit, you can kind of pick up a little bit more on a narrative that you don't quite pick up on the others. So for me, that's why I'm a big fan of Fantasmic.
Very cool. Would you put Happily Ever After second then, or would you put any show playing at Epcot second?
I would put Happily Ever After second. There's something that there's something about Happily Ever After that kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit. It gets you a little emotional. There's something they're doing there that kind of like, it makes you
Mhm.
it makes you feel something. Even if you've got like a stone cold heart, you can feel something watching that. And I mean, from a showmanship perspective, lasers, projections, lighting effects throughout, and the fireworks, they really bring it together with the music beautifully at Happily Ever After. So if you're interested in like show tech, like I think Happily Ever After is what you want to see.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. And sadly, the more I've thought about it, Epcot's not. I call it Epcot's nighttime show because it changes so frequently. But I feel like when you've got kids, it's the first one that falls flat, like
Mm.
falls off the schedule. Not necessarily falls flat in terms of enjoyment, but like if you can only keep your kids up at that late at night on a family vacation of 5 to 7 days, you're probably picking the other two parks first, and it's the one that falls off. Sort of like, unfortunately, if you've got a 4 day vacation, Animal Kingdom sometimes falls off, and people prioritize the other three parks. So the Epcot nighttime show, I really hope Symphony of Us makes it so that you want to get your kids out and get them there and bring something really special. And I think that'll be interesting to see how they try to pull that off. In terms of food, let's talk food a little bit. I know we've mentioned the kind of eating around the world at festivals, but are there any specific table service choices, Matt, that you really enjoy at Epcot?
I have two picks that I always recommend for Epcot for table service: Via Napoli and Hacienda. I think you get great pizza at Via Napoli. It's great. Everyone who I've ever taken there has absolutely loved it. Same with Hacienda. The advantage that a Hacienda has is you can actually get a reservation at Hacienda, or it's at least a lot easier to get a reservation at Hacienda. And so I usually recommend Hacienda first, and I say, hey, and if you spot Via Napoli, jump on that too. But those are by far my two favorite table service. But there is a lot of good options. You can't go wrong with table service at Epcot, I think.
I agree. Chip, any that stick out to you in terms of table service?
Like Garden Grill's always good with the buffet. Space 220 I haven't done, and I don't know if I need to do it. It might be one of those that when my kids are older, just if they're into space and something like that. But just the reviews and all the YouTube videos and things I've seen, it's just like, it could be okay. Those are kind of the two that really, Rosencrantz the one I actually do want to do. Like I want to do the at some point one of the festivals where you get in to see a concert as well with Rose and Crown. That's the one that I want to go to.
Yeah, I had a reservation for Space 220 like the first week it opened, and ended up canceling it because the menu was just not up my kids' alley.
Yeah.
It's a solo trip restaurant that I really would love to experience, but when you're there with the little ones, I'm not going to Space 220 and letting my kids get chicken fingers. So
So I have thoughts on Space 220.
let's hear it.
I've been a couple times. The reaction that my nephew had to walking into that restaurant was priceless. Like
How old is your nephew?
at the time, this was a couple years ago. I want to say he was 8 at the time,
Okay.
and blew his mind when we walked into that restaurant. And it is cool. You do this like space elevator simulation. And so we thought, oh, this is going to be great. And then you sit down, and what you're talking about is fine dining, and it's not, there's a little bit of it's a little disjointed, this sort of idea that you have this actually like fancy, like I don't know what it is, like a roasted cauliflower with whatever, it's a little bit more upscale dining, but in a very like strongly themed restaurant where you don't really expect that. So there's a little bit of like incongruity there. And so that kind of took us by surprise. And yeah, the kids had trouble finding the stuff that they wanted to eat. I don't think they were into the food that much. And it is good. It's high quality. It's a good experience. But yeah, I think it's in the end though, it's also very expensive. So if the kids aren't happy and it's very expensive, it's hard to make that work out and make you want to go back very much.
Yeah, I tell people you have to be a little farther on the foodie spectrum to really want to enjoy it, because an experience can only go so far.
Right. Yeah.
And that's, like we've talked about on the show before, be our guest in Cinderella's Royal Table. The experience gets you where my kid can have chicken tenders while I have a fillet. That's fine, because the experience is what it is. But a Space 220, I think it falls a little bit short on that front, at least for me. But I do want to try it as a solo guy when I go down. In terms of quick service, and I'll just mention too, Via Napoli is fantastic. It's fantastic. So definitely check that out if you can get the reservation, as Matt pointed out. Quick service. Are there any quick service spots or any countries in particular that jump out to you, Matt? Let's start with you. What do you think?
I think Regal Eagle is underrated. I always
Oh, that's a good
recommend
one.
it to people. It's a little bit newer than other spots there. There's barbecue. It's good, actually good barbecue, and and they have got Sprite Zero in the soda fountains there, which I love, and a nice selection of different barbecue sauces and so on. And there's something for everyone there. I took a group of 11 there, family, and they all found something they loved there. So I love Regal Eagle. I'll go there on my own too if I'm coming to Epcot for lunch.
Chip, what's your favorite quick service spot at Epcot, or your favorite country when you're walking around?
So we go to Mexico. My wife has to get a margarita. We get the chips and guac, and that holds us over until we get into America. We stop at Regal Eagle. I'm gonna just go out on a limb. Barbecue might be cheaper at Disney than up here in Ohio, and it's better. And I'm just going out there on that limb with you guys, saying Flame Tree, Regal Eagle, and then what's the one at Disney Springs that you just ate
Oh
at?
my gosh, Polite Pig.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't believe I even forgot to mention that.
yes.
Polite Pig it's in my top five for sure. I would have to sit and think about my top three, but it's in my top five. It's borderline Disney restaurant Mount Rushmore territory for me.
Oh wow.
That's how much I like Polite.
I
Have
gotta
you had
try it.
Polite Pig,
No,
Matt?
I gotta try it. I gotta try it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
It's and in fairness, like you, I go to Disney a lot. I had never had it until I was down 2 weeks or so ago. And I went there when I was by myself. It is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. It is really good. I definitely check it out if you can pop over to Disney Springs. And there's always seating. It's more of like the quick service walk up type of stuff instead of, having to have the ADR and things like that. So definitely check that out if you can, Matt, for sure. For
yeah.
me,
Mileage, hold
go
on.
ahead.
There's one more. You gotta go to
Okay.
France. You gotta end in France, and I can't. I don't know how to pronounce it. La Hal's Patisserie. I don't know. It's the pastry shop back there in the back. We got the baguette. We got it warmed up, and it's like $3.
Yeah.
And my kids love like rolls, so we just broke it off and we're passing bread around like it was communion. I don't know.
I I hear you. And I'll just mention my favorite is Mexico. And so much so that like when I go solo, I'll go to like Hollywood Studios and I'll park hop to Epcot just to go get tacos with rice and beans, stand and eat it on top of a trash can because there's nowhere to sit. And then I'll go back to Hollywood Studios.
There's secret seating there. Did you see this? So I was there recently and I was reviewing the churro sundae, which was only okay. But I noticed the sign on the door. There's like that back door to Hacienda, the restaurant, and it says, open until 3 p.m. for indoor seating. You can sit inside the restaurant after you get the quick service meal right there. So it's a pro tip for
I had
you.
no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new one. I'll have to check that out
Yeah.
because there's a very specific trash can as
Mm,
you're walking out towards the shops that
yeah.
I always just park myself there. I stand there, send my wife and kids a selfie. I'm at my trash can. I'm in my happy place. And then I usually just leave Epcot. I come in for the tacos, and they're not even like the greatest tacos in the world, right? Like don't go there expecting to have your mind blown because a podcast said that these tacos are fantastic. It's part of it is like being at Disney and being there. It's very much taco food, but it's good and it's fun. And so we're going to talk about two more things really quickly before we wrap up our thoughts on Epcot. Matt, do you do and maybe you do this with your nieces and nephews, and sometimes maybe you do it solo. Do you guys ever do any character meets, or do you have any thoughts on favorite characters that are at Disney at Epcot?
I'm an awkward guy. I am especially awkward when it comes to character meet and greets. So I usually don't do it on my own. And actually, the families I've been with haven't been super interested. They're more interested in food and rides than character meet and greets. That being said, I'm an 80s kid, so I'm excited to meet Figment next time I'm at Epcot if the line's not too long, because I do want that picture with Figment.
Fun, fun, fun. Chip, what do you think, especially for you and your kids? What's at least one character meet that you think people need to make sure that they know is at Epcot or prioritize when they're at Epcot?
Well, I'll say there's one that's at Epcot is over at Norway, the buffet. I personally wouldn't eat
Akershoes.
there. Akershoes. Yeah, that's right. I personally wouldn't eat there because the menu is rough for me. It's all Scandinavian. Now, breakfast I think is more normal, but the Scandinavian food is just isn't up our alley. But you can meet all the princesses there. The one we go to Garden Grill, and you see, I think it's Chippendale. Is it Mickey?
I want to
Mhm.
say it's Pluto. It's Mickey, Pluto, Chip
Pluto?
and Dale. At least last
Maybe
time I
that's
was there, it was Mickey, Pluto, Chip and Dale.
I think you're right. Maybe it's only 4. Yeah.
But Mickey's in his overalls, and I
Yes.
love it. I
He's
love
a
that
farmer. He's
costume.
Farmer Mickey.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, those are definitely two underrated character meals, Garden Grill and Akershoes, especially if you got someone that's into the princesses. And I tell anybody, if you've got a daughter or even a son that wants to meet the princesses, Epcot is the place to go. You can meet pretty much all of them, and a lot of times there is no wait for them because people really don't realize that they're there because they're tucked away behind buildings or in buildings. Like Jasmine, you've got to walk through buildings to get back there, and there's no signage whatsoever. So to find them, you really need to use the My Disney Experience app, and you can look there, or just do a little Google search before. But Anna and Elsa are the top two that everybody kind of knows about. But definitely, if you're into princesses, make Epcot a priority on your vacation for sure. So the last part to wrap up Epcot, this is I think going to be a little bit fun. We're going to do a rank the festivals, and we'll do best to worst. And Matt, I'm going to put you under the hot seat first. How would you rank the festivals best to worst, and kind of what's your thought processes on why?
So I I know my immediate number one, which would be food and wine. That's easy. I think food and wine is just big. It goes on for a long time, and the food element to me is really appealing. And that's just it just works with the whole Epcot experience really well, especially with countries and their cuisines. Second is I'd have to say is Festival of the Arts, because they actually have good food too. In fact, the last Festival of the Arts, they had a lot of like rainbow figment themed things and purple drinks and stuff that I really liked. And then the sort of experiences you get with doing the murals, and they just add in these like photo opportunities that are interesting. So I do like Festival of the Arts. It's just got this, it brings this vividness and this into Epcot. I like between flower and garden and holidays, it's kind of a toss up for me. I'm not super interested in gardening, although I appreciate what they do in terms with the topiary and the flowers and everything. But I like holiday food, so I'd have to put holiday next and then say flower and garden. Although it's all great stuff. That's just like if you're forcing me to rank it, that's why I would have to do it.
I do think Festival of the Holidays it leaves a little bit more to be desired in comparison to some of the
Yeah.
others. Matt, you've really hit the nail on the head in terms of the thought process there. And one thing I'll mention too, just as a background, is always be mindful of what artists are coming for concerts. The Garden Rock series and the Food and Wine concerts, like Festival of the Arts, there's always concerts going on, and they are awesome and they're free, and it's an intimate venue. So there can be some really cool artists. Some of the best concerts I've been to have been at Epcot on a whim that I didn't realize were going to be there.
Yeah, I was there and the Pointer Sisters were playing, and I didn't realize how much I love the Pointer Sisters until I heard one song after another. Again, 80s kid,
Yeah.
so
All right, let's jump into listener questions. And we've got quite a few, so I want to make sure we try and give them as much as we can. And I'm going to cut off a couple of them. Just Mark, your question about helping a solo traveler. We talked a little bit about that earlier. One of the things that was asked specifically for Matt by Lauren: what are your future Disney plans? Do you have any Run Disney or international trips in the works?
So I have, you mentioned we have a place in Celebration now. We're starting to do some work on it. So in December, I'm going to have a big block of time while we sort of figure out the design and the way we're going to fix up this place we got. And then after that, it's the whether or not I do the full marathon in January for the first weekend of January, we'll see. And then again, for me, my sights are on Hong Kong right now. Now that the Frozen Land is open, and I want to get there so that I can kind of complete the circuit is on my mind. I think I can maybe do that in 2024, depending on what work travel looks like.
Awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. We're excited to follow along with you on those trips for sure through Instagram and TikTok. Christy asked us, what is the best Run Disney race weekend for a beginner to running? And she specifically notes she wants to do her first half marathon. Matt, what are your thoughts, if you have any, on the best weekend for a beginner?
Okay, so I would say the biggest difference is, so you have to set aside the springtime surprise. There's no half marathon. I would also set aside the full marathon weekend, because the big deal there is the full marathon, and you kind of feel like you're being eclipsed a little bit. So that leaves Princess and Wine and Dine. The big difference between them, I say, is the course. And the best course is the Princess Half Marathon, because you run up to Magic Kingdom, through the castle, and back down. I think that's how you should be making your decision on this. Whether one is better for a beginner, I don't know, but there is a big difference in the way the courses are. And if you want that amazing photo of you running through the castle, and they take great shots, it's a great motivator to get a good photo of you running in front of the castle. Princess Half Marathon is the way to go, I would say.
Man, what a great answer.
That's
I the only thing I would add to that is, if you envision yourself wanting to do a full, then I would consider the full marathon weekend, only because you get to cheer on the other runners
Yeah.
and see what it's like, and really give yourself kind of a vision of what that entire process is like. Because it's a Run Disney race is different. Getting up at 2:30 in the morning to take a bus to the corrals and to sit there for a couple of hours, you really start to get a taste for how it's different. And I do think that there's something to be said for running, when you run your first marathon, having seen it and having been there, it takes a little bit of that edge off. And I think that that can be helpful. But otherwise, I completely agree with Matt. I think Princess is the best course, probably. Wine and Dine is, if you're going for an adults only trip, or you and your friends are going in a running group or something like that, it might be a good choice. I don't think you can really go wrong. That's for sure. But Matt's made great points. And do keep in mind too that we register for these things so far out, as Matt pointed out earlier on, and they don't give you the course map until like a month or two before. So don't come with your pitchforks at the two
Right.
mats about about the course. If you go run it and they're coming at the podcast and the two mats like, hey, we didn't run through the castle now.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
No
The courses,
refund, no
the courses
refunds from the two
change.
mats.
Right.
You're definitely not getting your refunds here. But all right, so let's jump into this. Is one I get a lot. And Matt, I love to know what you and Chip think on this. Do you guys buy souvenirs on every trip, considering how often you go? Are there any specific souvenirs you collect or look for? Thanks, Jason. I see some pins on the wall.
Yeah.
Matt, we'll start with you, and then Chip, I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I don't buy souvenirs on every trip, but if I do something special on a trip, let's say it's the first time I ride on Guardians, I'll buy the Guardians pin. I like pins because they're small, they're not that expensive, they don't take up a ton of space in your luggage and in your home. You can put them up on a cork board really nicely, and it's not like a big piece of plastic that takes up space. Like I could not imagine myself collecting popcorn buckets because I've got nowhere to put them.
My popcorn bucket got tossed by my wife, so I'm right there with you. Chip, what do you think?
We just got into pin trading. So with my kids, that's one of the things my son really wanted to do. So we we will have 3 lanyards at Christmas time. We will have 3 lanyards. We have 2 now. So that's the pin trading is probably the best way of souvenir, because I mean you can get one for $12.
Yeah.
We get the resort every time we go to like stay at a resort. That's the one we get. So kind of following along with Matt, like if there's a new ride that you've never done or new experience, do something along that line. It's very affordable that way.
For me, outside of like my kids don't really collect anything, but for me personally, I have an eye for hats and spirit jerseys. So like if they've got like a Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, I grabbed the spirit jersey for myself, and I'm a huge sucker for the Nike hats,
Yeah.
the ones at the Disney parks. They're dry fit and they're incredibly comfortable, and I wear them all the time. There's we haven't gotten into the pins. Who knows if my kids will in the future, but I definitely stay away from the popcorn buckets and the sippers. And we do have, unfortunately, a collection of bubble wands, but that's by circumstance, not by desire. So, Jason, I hope that helps. And then the last one, Macy asked, "What are a few Disney movies to watch before a family's first trip to Walt Disney World?" Matt, what do you got for us?
So that's a good one. I like that question. The way we think of it is that if, when before we left on the trip where we were going to do Guardians for the first time, we watched through the Guardians movies and then, we watched Tron when Tron's opening. That's the way we kind of do it. But I gotta say, there's so many touch points between movies and what's going on in the parks for obvious reasons, the synergy. But so it really depends on like what are you most excited to ride and or do, and then I would just say watch that movie or watch whatever movie that's associated with, so that to kind of get you excited for it. I can't imagine any other way of kind of figuring that out, to be honest.
Man, Matt, you're killing all the perfect answers tonight. Chip, what is your thought?
I don't have the patience to sit there and watch multiple movies, but I would also the Disney Plus, any of those, like the Imagineering story. What's
Behind the
the one?
attraction.
Yeah,
Behind the
Behind the
Attraction, yeah.
Attraction's phenomenal. Season 2 is great of that. So
Yeah. I think for me, I agree with Matt. Like it depends on what your kids are into and what you guys want to accomplish on the vacation. We've got a couple guests that are really excited about doing Star Wars, but had never seen Star Wars.
Right.
So to me, like you've got to run if your trip's in June, which these guests are, like you've got to run the gamut of a lot of Star Wars before you head down. But the biggest one, if you've got kids in the 3 to 7 range, my number one recommendation is Toy Story 1 and 2. And that's if you can only watch a couple movies, those are the two. Because and the reason being, Slinky Dog for that age group is the best attraction at Walt Disney World, in my opinion. And so it's a great first coaster. Yeah. Do you want to ride the Barnstormer or something first to warm your kids up? Sure. But Slinky Dog is awesome. And it is Disney did that right. And to really get enamored into the Andy's backyard area, you have to at least watch Toy Story 1. And if you get through 2, then you've got Jesse, who's right outside the ride, and you can kind of better understand the characters and do Toy Story Mania and stuff like that. So to me, that's the 2 that I would pick if I really had to figure it out. But as Matt pointed out, like there's so many touch points throughout so many different things. If you're excited about, heck, Jungle Cruise has a movie
Right.
now.
yeah.
There's something for everybody. And so even if you run the gamut of all these other movies, there's something you can catch up on, or some of the history on Disney Plus and things like that. So we're going to skip overrated or underrated this week just because we're going really long. So we'll revisit that next week. And I really want to focus on a new segment we're doing on the show called Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore is going to be 4 selections, just like Mount Rushmore. You can either do rides as a category, restaurants as a category, resorts as a category, or you can mix them together and do your ultimate Disney Mount Rushmore. These are my 4 top things across the board. So Matt, kick us off. What are your 4 things on your Disney Mount Rushmore?
I'm doing a mix. I would say I have to have a couple attractions on there, a little bit of food and an experience. This is kind of wanted a nice mix there. So as you know, big Cosmic Rewind fan. So I'm seeing Cosmic Rewind, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is the number one spot there. I thought I really also wanted to, that's a new attraction and it's the best one Disney has. So I wanted to complement that with an attraction that is a little more classic and has lots of different versions. So I went with Pirates of the Caribbean, any of the versions that are at any of the parks, they're great. And so I think it's just a classic Disney attraction you need to include.
I can smell it when you mention it.
Yeah, exactly. Snack for me, a snack I love and I also think is just like quintessentially Disney's Dole Whip. So I kind of see that on my Mount Rushmore. And then finally, I think the fourth thing that I think rounds out like a perfect sort of quintessential Disney parks Mount Rushmore would be Fantasmic. I think it really just captures a lot of the spirit of Disney in one amazing show. So that would be, those are kind of the four that when you kind of pitched this to me, those are the four that jumped out in my head.
I love it. And Chip and I are going to do this with guests. So we're not going to answer ours yet. I think people will get to know us a little bit throughout the show. So I do just, we've got a few minutes. So I want to pick your brain, Matt, on the overrated or underrated.
Okay.
Yes.
When you go down, now that you've got a spot in Celebration, you don't have a need to stay at the resorts. But when you go down to the resorts, generally, like what resorts do you typically stay at?
So for when I was doing the work from Disney thing for a while, I was staying off property. I was staying at the Vistana Resort at 530 on 535 and I-4 because it had a ton of space. But I do stay at Disney resorts for shorter stretches, shorter trips. And so I've stayed at a little bit of everything, really. I do love the resorts that are right behind Epcot or between Epcot and Hollywood Studios just because of the location. And I've stayed at the monorail resorts, but I definitely prefer those resorts that are right near Epcot because you got those two parks right there.
All right. Well, that's a good segue. Let's kick it off here. Overrated or underrated? Wilderness Lodge.
Wilderness Lodge is absolutely underrated because I think Wilderness Lodge is like the perfect hotel. I think it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. One of my favorite places in the world is the lobby of the Wilderness Lodge. And it's got the craftsman style furniture in there. It's got some Native American touches. It's got the sort of Yellowstone theme to it. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous hotel. I wish it was a little better connected to like other deluxe resorts are. But I mean, what a gorgeous place to stay, I think. So I think it's absolutely underrated.
So, Chip, what's your thought? Overrated or underrated?
If it's any other month or any other season besides winter, it is overrated. I think during Christmas, I think it's got to be the most beautiful place, and like that's where we want to stay. But during the heat of the summer, I don't want to be there. That just makes me think of like cold, and I mean, I know it's hot, but I agree with everything else. Like it is phenomenal resort. It's beautiful. The pool's beautiful. The disconnect is one of the biggest issues that it's going to take you 20 minutes to get almost anywhere because it's kind of off a little bit off the beaten path.
Mhm.
Even if you take a boat to Magic Kingdom, it's a 20-minute boat ride.
Yeah, it's completely underrated for me because it's the most forgotten about Walt Disney World Resort. I think when I have guests get quotes, it is very very rare that they ask me about Wilderness Lodge, and it's not because they aren't interested in a deluxe resort or in the price range or whatever. It's because they don't realize it exists. It just doesn't get talked about that much. So to me, it's underrated. It is absolutely gorgeous. I think if you can stay there at Christmas, my goodness, it is beautiful. All the Disney resorts at Christmas are beautiful, but it is phenomenal. But I think it is probably the most under talked about resort at Walt Disney World across the board, whether it be social media or anything else. I really think it just gets overlooked. I mean, and I don't know, maybe people think that it's like part of the campgrounds, or maybe they think that it's part of Animal Kingdom. I don't know what the answer is there, but it's just an odd thing that it gets so forgotten. Matt, let's bring it back around. Overrated or underrated? Sticking with our theme of Epcot, Garden Grill.
Garden Grill is underrated. It's been there a long time. I think people have kind of forgotten about that it was there, but I just was there a few weeks ago and it is good as ever. It was amazing. We had breakfast there and absolutely loved it. So I think it's just, since it's not new and shiny, I think people kind of forget about it. So underrated.
Yeah. Chip, what do you think?
It's underrated. Everything he said. Also, it spins.
Yeah,
So
right.
for kids, it's kind of cool. You're like, oh, we're kind of moving. The food's phenomenal, especially at dinner. They used to have like pork, like a pork tenderloin thing. Now I think it's like turkey and steak, and all the reviews are phenomenal. But they still have like stuffing and cornbread, and the salad is literally grown in living with the land. So that's pretty cool.
I actually didn't know that. That's interesting. For me, it's underrated, and only because it's really rare that you have a character meal that the food is good. And by good, I mean like I would go there just for the food. If I go to Chef Mickey's, I'm going because I want my kids to see Mickey. I'm definitely not going to sit in the loud contemporary and eat a bad breakfast, and I wouldn't call it bad. So I don't mean it that way, but you get what I mean. You can actually go to Garden Grill because you want to have a good meal, not just to see characters. And I don't think there's a whole lot of restaurants you can say that about at Walt Disney World where it could survive completely independent of the other. So I think for that reason, to me, it's definitely underrated. Rides, Ratatouille, sticking with our Epcot theme. Matt, what do you think?
Overrated. Only the way I know this is because I'm never as excited as everybody else is to ride it. I do like it. I'm not gunning for it like everybody else is.
Chip, what do you think?
I think it's underrated for kids. I kind of agree with Matt. It was cool first time I rode it, but my kids loved it. They loved all the aspects of it. I mean, it's a different Mickey and Minnie's, but it's underrated for kids especially.
For me, it's overrated ride and overrated movie.
Hmm.
The movie, like it's
Hot take.
not it's not replayable in my house.
Hmm.
You know, there's probably 15 or 20 Disney movies that are very replayable to my kids, and in my for me personally that I would sit down and watch without my kids. Ratatouille is not one of them. So that's just where it falls for me, and because I just it's like Matt said, I don't run to it. It's not one of my top priorities, so that's kind of where it falls for me. It's a good ride though.
Hot take.
Um,
It's playing in my car all the time. We got about 4 movies, and that's one of them. That's always playing.
I it just doesn't do it for
Yeah.
me. There was I came around on Princess and the Frog. That was
Oh
another
yeah.
one that like it took me one or two tries. One. Oh, and we'll let you get out of here, Matt. Overrated or underrated snack? Joffrey's coffee. It's everywhere at Walt Disney World. What do you think, Matt?
Overrated. I don't know why people love it so much.
You're
It's
not taking it home with you and ordering it to the house?
No, no. The coffee's fine. My husband loves it's the shaken Jamaican or whatever it is. I don't remember what the iced coffee is they have there. But generally with Joffrey's, my main complaint is those donuts. They look really good. They never taste really good. I've got that's my bone to pick with Joffrey's.
Fair enough. Coffee. Chip, do you have any thoughts on that one?
I agree 100% with the donuts, but it's underrated. I love their coffee. I'm not a Starbucks fan, so that's kind of probably my reason why I love their coffee is I brew it every day. Not at home, just down there, but it's just a good change up for what we have here. So I like their coffee. I just drink black coffee. My wife is into all the other stuff and with calories and whatnot. So
For me, it's overrated in the sense that I'm not ordering it to my house, and I'm not stealing it from my room to take home like some of the people you see online. So to me, like I expected it to be like magic, literally, and it is not on that front.
Right.
So anyway, we've gone a long time. Matt, man, thank you so much for joining us. That's gonna
Thank
wrap
you.
up this episode. If you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us on social media or via email. I can be found at Adventures of a Disney Dad. Chip, where can people find you?
at Robinson Dad Life on Instagram.
Matt Richardson, is that your handle across all platforms?
It is on Instagram. On TikTok, I'm actually Matt Hungry again.
There you go. Matt Hungry
Not a
again.
foodie, not a foodie guy.
Nope, nope,
Not
nope.
a foodie though. Yeah, absolutely. At Matt Richardson on Instagram. Follow
Thank
him
you.
on both places and show him some support.
Thank you.
And if you're interested in having me assist you in planning your next Universal or Disney vacation, please feel free to reach out. All of the links to get a free quote are in the show notes. Our services are free to you, and we'd love to help you plan your dream vacation. If you have a moment and you could follow, subscribe, like, and review the podcast on whatever platform you prefer, we would greatly appreciate the support. We always know that you have a lot of choices when it comes to content that you consume. We hope this episode brightened your day and you learned a little bit. We hope you enjoy Matt's content. We sure do. Matt, thank you again. And I've got to leave the outro, right? We'll see you in the parks.
We'll see you in the park.
We'll see you in the parks.